listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk the earth.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord!
Praise God! Give away!
Welcome to the House by the Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Corey.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello.
And this is the first podcast we're actually recording in person with video. So if you're listening to the downloaded version of the podcast, you can check out the video on our YouTube channel. Or if you're on YouTube, here we are.
And my neck's messed up, so if I look awkwardly, that's why. So
Excuses.
Yeah, so in this episode, we'll be discussing the original Black Christmas from 1974 and the 2006 remake. But before we discuss that, we'll go through some things we've been watching and some news. So in terms of things we've been watching, one thing I'll start out with is Derek's not on the podcast today because he's out of town. And I know he's been the one on the podcast who loves Scream Queens the most. But after the finale, I had a chance to talk to him about it just to get his opinion. And we both categorically hated it. And in my opinion, it ruined the show.
the
And
entire season.
yeah. So I would,
Man.
at this point, what I would tell somebody is if you really want to watch it, watch like episode 5, whichever the episode was before they went to their like 2-week break because of the World Series.
Yeah.
The episodes after it were slow, and then like the Thanksgiving one was fun, and then the ones after that were slow. And I was like, okay, well, it's just gearing up for this big ass finale. Amongst the final two, it was a 2-hour episode. From the 2 hours, 2 characters died, and one of them was somebody that literally showed up in the scene they died in. And it was just like, it really wasn't a horror finale. Like the second half of the episode, the second hour was almost like an episode of Glee. So I was like, if you want, like, I thought maybe if they go like, you know, balls to the wall crazy with like kills left and right and blood
Yeah.
everywhere, it'd be awesome. But they completely avoided
just
that.
like wipe out the entire cast.
Yeah, so theoretically, from what they've said, they said that only 4 characters would survive and move on to the next season if they get one. But from what I can gather, there are far more than 4 characters that survived. So I'm not sure exactly what they meant when they said that. Maybe only 4 of them will be covered in a new season if it gets the
Yeah.
green light. At this point, though, if they make another season, I probably won't care to watch it.
Did Derek say if he's excited for season 2 or what?
No, he said he wasn't really excited for a second season either.
Wow, he dropped off big time then, huh? He was
Like,
hot on that show.
There's still one segment from, I think it was episode 2, that involves some chainsaw stuff. That's one of my favorite things I've seen on TV this year. So watch that one scene. But beyond that,
Can you link it in the show notes?
yeah, I'll see if it's on there. I don't know if it is. Because they seem to have a pretty tight control on clips from that show being on YouTube. But it was on their official channel because I tried to find it. But So it was a show that, like, the first half of the season was fun. It got a little bit of a lull, but then just the ending to me just ruined it. So
And you wrote like a recap for the site too, right?
yeah, I did a season 1 recap that was just general thoughts without spoiling anything. I think it's still better than MTV Scream, just because it had more money and better actors and actresses.
Did you watch any of that, Corey? MTV Scream?
No,
It was
I did
pretty
not.
bad.
Yeah, it's better than that.
I actually only seen like I think 3 episodes of Scream Queens.
I mean, the only thing that, the only way I guess I'd really recommend somebody watch it now is if it shows up on Netflix and you want to binge it or something. But even then, like, I don't know. It was a disappointing finale for sure. And we're actually recording this on a Saturday morning, so we haven't had a chance to watch the new episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Or Sleep.
Yeah, so we won't be discussing that in the episode, and Derek's not here to gripe and complain about it. Let's see, other things.
Maybe he can just go in the comments section of the podcast.
I'll take its place. I'll just find something else to gripe and complain
See,
about.
briefly, other things I watched. Escape from L.A., which is just kind of a goofier remake of Escape from New York.
My wife loves that one too.
I mean, it's fun. It's got Bruce Campbell in it. It's got Peter Fonda surfing, but it's got a really, really, really bad CGI, and it's got like a scene with a character that's transgender that I don't know would fly in today's world because they just literally take like a dude's voice and dub it over a fucking woman. I kind of forgot about that. I mean, it's still fun. It's still Snake Plissken, but it's just kind of if they made a sequel, I don't know. That's the sequel everybody wanted.
Yeah.
then what else I watched? Darkman. That's another one where it's funny to rewatch that and just remember how much of like Sam Raimi's touches on that, and how much of it looks like it's out of Evil Dead with all the crazy stuff they put in it. And apparently they'd even cut out some of the crazier elements. So I'm interested to see like what they didn't let them shoot or do.
Yeah. So do you know if any of that stuff was actually shot?
I think I would be talking out of turn. I don't remember exactly. I just read it on Wikipedia. I think some of it was stuff that like got cut out, and then some of it was stuff they didn't okay to shoot.
Yeah.
So he apparently came out of that movie being like, well, the studio system's not as great as I thought it would be, and it's kind of tough compared to working on independent films.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I haven't watched that movie since maybe
Oh,
right
man.
after Spider-Man 1 or before. Like it's been a long time
since I've actually watched that.
yeah, it's fun, but yeah, I mean, it's actually, when you think about it, it was an original superhero film because he got passed over for Batman and couldn't get the rights to Spider-Man yet, so he made that.
What about the Phantom?
Oh yeah, that was or was it the Phantom or the Shadow? I think it was the Shadow.
Shadow.
Yeah, the Shadow, the one that had Alec Baldwin with long fingernails and a Fu Manchu for a while. So we were spared that. A good director being wasted on that movie. But that was pretty much all the stuff I watched this week. Just because I had some work Christmas parties, did some drinking.
What about you, Corey?
The stuff that I watch is like, it's like so out in the open. It's like I just take every genre I can find, I just throw them up in the air, and I just grab something and throw it in. I went on like a cheesy martial arts movie binge this week. Shoot Fighter. It's got Bolo Young from Bloodsport in it. William Zabka from Karate Kid. He's actually a good guy in it. What else? I watched Kickboxer 2 with Sasha Mitchell. He was the guy on. He was the dumb older brother on Step by Step.
Oh,
And they try to make him a badass in this movie, and he's the worst actor ever. Watched We Are Still Here.
Yeah, do you like
Borrowed
that?
the Blu-ray from Sean, and it's awesome. I actually really enjoyed it and didn't think I would.
Yeah, I was telling William and Derek they need to probably watch that. As far as 2015 horror films, wasn't like my favorite, but it's definitely one that kind of stands out for me.
Yeah, it's those haunted house movies, man. It's just like every time there's another haunted house movie that comes out, I'm like, oh god,
Me too.
another
But
one.
it turns out to be a little bit more.
Yeah,
Not the spoiling thing, but it turns out to be a little bit more than
It
that.
definitely stands out a little bit, and the storyline's actually a lot cooler than normal, and it's actually kind of scary at times. There was a few times where I was watching a movie, I was like,
I think it's a Canadian
oh
production.
shit, I'm
too.
recording. I wasn't supposed to do that. Yeah, and I closed the week out with Pee-wee's Christmas special. Yeah. You can buy that at Kroger right now
Pee-wee.
for like $6.
I watched
It's awesome.
most of Ernest Saves Christmas, which
Yes.
I love that. That's probably one of my favorite Ernest films, I think.
Know what I mean? I still can't get past Ernest Goes to Camp. That's still my favorite
Yeah.
one out of all of them.
I watched quite a few things. I was on vacation. Electric Boogaloo, The Story of Canon, which was very good. It's the two brothers that kind of came over to America and started Canon Films, and so it's from the same director as Not Quite Hollywood, the Australian exploitation film.
Amazing
Yeah.
documentary. If nobody's seen
I
that,
like that documentary more, but it's only because of I think like that documentary. If you watch it, it's almost like a history lesson in Australian films. So you get like a big overview of all the genre films from like the 70s, 80s, and then like early 90s, I think. This
That's where I
film,
found out about Stone.
yeah, I
my
mean, there's so
favorite.
many good films you can discover through that. This is all about Canon, and it's specifically about the two brothers, and it's about the movies they made, but they made so many movies, and they were just like pumping them out like crazy. Like it literally will just touch on them, and it's about like their story and what the company went through. So for me, it's not as interesting as like Not Quite Hollywood, because in that it was almost like listening to a lot of people talk about films.
I was really hoping they would get into each film.
And they do talk a little bit about them, but it's more about their business strategies and signing on like Bronson for Death Wish 3,
Right.
and then they did Death Wish. Did they do Death Wish 2 or 3?
I think it was 3.
Yeah, they did 3. And then Chuck Norris. So there's a lot of interesting stuff, and it's a really awesome documentary. But like Not Quite Hollywood is up there, one of my favorite docs.
Electric
ever.
Boogaloo sounds like it would have to be like 10 hours long if it would go through, because like I said, they released so much
it's
stuff.
very well done, and it like
Canon Films is basically my childhood.
it's super slick, just like Not Quite Hollywood. Like I can't imagine anybody doing a better job at trying to cover all of that. It's just because of the angle they take, it's not as interesting to me. But still, the brothers have an interesting story. I just like the film history aspect more of Not Quite Hollywood. But that's on Netflix, and it's only like less than $10 some places. Ex Machina, which a lot of people talked very highly about that.
Ex Machina.
It's got Oscar Isaac in it before his appearance in Star Wars as a character that I haven't found out about because I'm avoiding spoilers.
And he's in Drive too. It was pretty good. I liked it, but it was very much one of those sci-fi films where they kind of discuss the things instead of letting it naturally come out of the story, you know? So a lot of people are really high on that film. I liked it. Watched Lucy. That's kind of a sci-fi action film.
Lucy!
Super dumb. Luke Besson, who did...
Lucy!
From the Lucille Ball Show.
Oh, I didn't know you were doing a Ricky impression. Sorry.
Ricky Ricardo.
It's not
what
often
else?
somebody just jumps out with an I Love Lucy impression.
I think that was pretty much all the horror stuff I watched. I watched A Very Merry Christmas too on Netflix. I enjoyed that. But that's pretty much all the horror, sci-fi, action stuff.
Ooh, don't mean to backtrack. I did watch Christmas Evil, which is, you've always heard me talk about it as one of my favorite Christmas horror movies ever. And it's one of those movies, like, I don't really condone remakes a whole lot, but this, I'm really surprised that nobody's kind of jumped on this movie. It's got a really super, like, original storyline, and the ending is one of the kind of half terrifying, half hilarious endings I've ever seen in my entire life.
What year was that made?
1980. It was released by Troma. I don't know when Troma released it, probably years later, but Christmas Evil is absolutely amazing. If you have not seen that, you need to watch it. I'm surprised nobody's picked it up for a remake, honestly.
And was that on your top 5 list from last year?
Yeah, it was number 1, actually.
So we'll probably repost that maybe this week, William, right? Top 5.
Yeah, so you can find it now on our YouTube channel or on the site. We'll be reposting it soon. But Corey did a list of top 5 horror Christmas movies. So there's some you've probably heard of, maybe ones in this podcast, and then some others that you haven't.
Ever on it.
Yeah, you and William shot that last year.
Yeah, that
Like
was
a child molester. Jeez.
Yeah, so you can see that one. Oh, quickly too, I forgot to mention I did watch the this week's episode of American Horror Story, and
The
I don't
Lady
know.
Gaga show.
And that it was funny is in that episode they talk about hate watching something, which is kind of what I'm doing at this show now.
Are they talking about hate watching a show or sex?
Well, there's like a convoluted plot. They're gonna create like they're gonna like a big steel door so they can lock people in like a section of the hotel and just leave them there to die. And they put a bunch of cameras in the words of Lady Gaga's character, to hate watch. So I was like, maybe they're saying like the real villains are the people who hate watch these shows. But American Horror Story, it's great horror for your mom. I don't know.
It's like 50 Shades of Grey, where it's titillating for the right audience. Is that how you would?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and even people who like it, I think with Scream Queens too, like all those Ryan Murphy shows, they just fall apart towards the end or like later in the seasons. Yeah. This year, he's accelerated the rate at which they fall apart. The Scream Queens, instead of taking multiple seasons, it took one.
Do you think he'll ever branch out into films? I don't know if he's done any before, but
I don't know. He's making a
success,
crap ton of money from Fox and FX and everybody.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably.
Well, I just mean if they eventually dump him, if things start going downhill for him.
I don't see him. I don't know. I would rather someone else get the money to make a horror film than that crew.
Close.
So
we'll probably have a Kickstarter here in about 5 years when all their shows get canceled.
Yep. So I think that'll wrap up what we've been watching. And in news, I'm going to make this as quick as possible because we did a podcast for the express purpose of not coming back and discussing this. Ridley Scott said in the new Alien sequel, Covenant, that there will be the classic xenomorph, facehugger, and egg. So all the Alien staples will be there.
And Chestburster, right?
Yeah, and the Chestburster, which I'm guessing, since they include the word alien in the title, they had to include the aliens in it, or else people are going to be massively confused. Although they're probably
not audience members.
Yeah, they're probably already confused, just like, what's Prometheus? And then you got the aliens?
Do you think some people like blew their mind when they watched Prometheus and the alien popped up at the end? They were like, what's going on?
Oh, I know some people.
There had to be
probably.
somebody who wasn't aware of all that.
I mean, there had to have been, but I couldn't imagine it being many people because, like, in the advertisements are like, from Ridley Scott, the visionary director of Alien, comes this
There was
movie that's
probably
not really
plenty
Alien.
of kids that went to see that though that had never even seen Alien. You know what I mean? That like,
Yeah. Oh man, you
no
mean that
context.
movie where the girl runs around?
oh yeah, Alien versus Predator. I remember that movie.
God, don't go there.
AVP. Yeah, so that's
Stars original.
So that's a piece of news. I know, Sean, you had some news.
I already
Discuss
forgot.
some news.
Oh, it's the stuff I sent you.
Oh yeah.
So Pieces is getting a Blu-ray release. Did you hear about that?
My favorite movie ever.
Yeah. I think that's coming. When was that coming out? Was that February-ish?
I will have to.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. I was
Yeah, I want to get
sending.
on my phone too.
I was sending William some messages. So, also on eBay right now, you can buy the rights to Return of the Living Dead 4 and 5. The actual film prints
Yeah.
and the rights to the films for a little less than $50,000 a piece.
Oh, too. Kind of
With
unrelated.
the low price. 4 easy payments, though.
So, not that we would want that film, but
Return of the Living Dead 5, I think it was called like Necropolis.
no,
or
4 was
something.
Necropolis.
4 was
5
Necropolis?
was Rave to the Grave. That was on Sci-Fi
Oh,
Channel.
my God,
Yeah, I
so
watched
bad.
that one. I haven't seen
Those
4.
are-
5 is really bad.
See, so Pieces will hit Blu-ray on February 23rd, 2016.
Oh my God, I can't wait to get that.
So you can watch it in
Bastard! I can't wait to see that scene alone.
and
in
Children
Blu-ray.
Shouldn't Play with Dead Things is also coming to Blu-ray,
Ugh.
which is a Bob Clark film.
Ugh.
I felt it was appropriate considering we're covering Black Christmas.
Yes. Those are two. How do I not know about those?
Yeah, I figured to bring them up because I know you're big fans of
Jeez.
both of those. So Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, that comes out. I don't know when. I don't see it on here.
This is
February 23rd.
medley.
So is that the same date?
Yeah. So it looks like the same day for these movies.
Oh man,
VCI
I'm
Entertainment.
gonna pass out that
is
day.
doing-
Yep.
Definitely.
So is that
copping
pretty
those.
much all the news, right?
Oh.
We're recording this way early, so
Yeah.
this won't be out for another 4 days. So who knows what news will break?
Two kind of slightly unrelated. Saw this big story about that Wu-Tang Clan album
Yeah.
where they only sold one copy of it for like a couple $1 million. And it went to that guy that who owns Turing Pharmaceuticals that bought that one drug and marked it up from like was it like less than $50 a pill to
It was like a
$750.
cancer drug or
Yeah.
something. wasn't
Yeah, it was like a
Or an AIDS
life-saving. It
drug
was a
or something?
life-saving drug that people needed, and he marked it up like 800,000% or something. And he owns the Wu-Tang Clan album. And there was rumors on the internet that have yet to be verified that there was a clause in the contract
That
that
they
said
could
that
take
the
it
Wu-Tang
back.
Clan could legally stage a heist to try to steal it back. Either them or Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And if they successfully completed it, they could keep it without any legal repercussions.
That needs
And
to be
didn't
a
they
movie.
tweet out, we need to get in contact with Bill Murray?
yeah,
I think they tweeted that out.
like it's all unsubstantiated because that was
Yeah.
just like an verified third party that reported that. But if
That
that's
sounds
true,
like the insane thing that would happen, considering that they even made an album like this and
That's-
sold it, you know?
that's the next Bill Murray Netflix special
Yeah.
is how the Wu-Tang Clan stole Christmas from a greedy pharmaceutical owner. So unrelated to horror, I just thought that was hilarious.
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with.
Yeah, so I guess that'll take care of the news. Like we said, recording this on Saturday, something may or may not happen. Who cares?
What
It's probably going to be
It's December.
news that gets thrown out and things that get changed.
It's December.
Movies
So
are getting
did we
made
put
and
up on the
released.
site
Big
this
deal.
week? What did we put up on the site this week? Godzilla teaser, the
there's
Toho one, Godzilla
Resurgence.
Resurgence. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Godzilla, so it's the Japanese response to the 2014 Gareth Edwards directed Godzilla movie starring Walter White, Quicksilver from the Avengers, not from X-Men, and
different ones.
the Scarlet Witch from the Avengers, and Godzilla.
And I think this was, of course, after 98, 99. I think they did that with Godzilla 2000.
Yeah, made fun of it.
After the Matthew Broderick, Roland Emmerich Godzilla film, Japan made Godzilla 2000 in response to that too. So every time America makes a new Godzilla film, we can guarantee that Japan's gonna make their own new one.
Stupid American.
But I mean, this time, like the last Godzilla movie, the one from 2014, it didn't even have any promotions with Taco Bell with the Chihuahua.
Yeah,
was
missed
like,
opportunity.
Here, lizard. I mean, that was a solid ad campaign.
I remember that ad campaign.
Yeah, I think I had one of those little
I watched those
dogs.
commercials to get a glimpse of Godzilla because he'd be running through the city like Those were great.
I remember watching that movie. So in 1998, when that came out, I was 13, and I was like, "This movie stretches credulity for a Godzilla film." But
I loved Godzilla as a kid.
yeah, well, I hated the American one. I love the character of Godzilla.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't mean that one, but
Yeah, I don't think anybody loved that one. All right, so we can move into the discussion of Black Christmas. And I guess we should say, since this is a movie from 1974 and a movie from 2006, we'll just be doing full spoilers throughout. So if you don't know anything about these movies, if you haven't seen them, then just listen anyway.
yeah.
But, I mean, because, I think everybody's probably seen the original at least.
I think more people have probably seen the remake than the original.
I really don't think it matters.
Yeah,
If you
I don't
hear
know.
spoilers on this. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not super hot on these films.
So I guess we can start out just kind of briefly, like, the synopsis of these, and at least the original one, is that a group of sorority sisters is being stalked and killed by an unknown person that's hiding out in their attic.
Never happened before.
That's kind of really the only synopsis you need, and it's kind of based on the urban legend of, like, the man in the attic that's, that's floated around forever, where there's, like, oh, the killer's calling from inside the house, which is which is a big plot point.
Don't touch the table!
Trying not to touch the table. But, yeah, so it had Margot Kidder in it from 1974, so years before she was in Superman or the Amityville Horror. And her character in this movie was drunk as shit all the time.
Really fucking drunk.
Like, I wonder if she was drunk on set, because that'd be fun. Like, your character's...
She took the Dennis Hopper approach on set.
Yeah, so her
Genuine.
just constantly drinking. So this was 1974. So you're talking about like kind of the same time era as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but before Halloween. Years before Halloween and Friday the 13th. So this movie, like, kind of reclassifying now. I think it's more of just like a murder mystery thriller. Whodunit? I don't know. I don't really know it's a whodunit. The sequel, I don't know. The sequel isn't either, or the remake. I mean, it's a horror movie, but it doesn't have all, like, the staples that would become the slasher genre later, but it predated a lot of them and it influenced a lot of movies.
I don't think anybody was actually even, like, killed on screen. I don't think there was actually one person actually
There was a bag over the
die
head.
Yeah,
on
the bag
screen.
over the head.
It didn't actually show her die, though.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, that was the most, like, and it was mostly just, like, somebody stabbing down and you see the blood squirt up,
Yeah.
so... But, I mean, like, I do think there were a lot of effective sequences in this. Oh, it had John Saxon years
yeah.
before
Who's
he
been in
appeared in
everything.
Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think he was using probably the same hairpiece or maybe a little bit bushier one. Well, in that
How dare
documentary about Nightmare on Elm Street, they even said, like, when Wes Craven was talking to John Saxon, he came in, like, straight-faced with, like, a couple of hairpieces. Like, which one do you want? Do you want this much hair or do you want this much hair? I was like, that is
What a
badass.
perfectionist.
That is badass. He's like, do you want this look or this look?
John Saxon keeps it real.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, he doesn't really look any different, like, 20 years later than he did in that movie.
Yeah.
But, like, so there are some elements of, like, with the police force in this one that are kind of absent in the remake.
The first one feels much bigger because there's a lot more going on. The remake basically takes place all in one setting.
Yeah, well, one saying with another one at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one, they're going around places. There's a kid that gets kidnapped or killed in the park, and they're going all over the place. And there's more characters. Well, too, I'll say the one thing that was in the original, there was less characters to focus on, so you actually got a little bit of flavor of who they were. Not that any of them really had any great personalities. And, for 1974, they had an abortion story in this movie, which is...
Okay, so that part of the movie, I was like, all right, the beginning of it, it's from the 70s. You can kind of give it a pass on some elements. So you're watching the film, and they go on for so long with the abortion discussion. And I get it. It was so, like, ham-fisted that it's like, okay, well, this is obviously going to play into the overall, story or twist at some point. But it was just so, like, I'm so bored of listening to them debate over getting an abortion.
Yeah, some of the dialogue in this was just, like, so dry, and it just drug on for so long.
I really like the kind of, I mean, at the time, obviously it wasn't really conventional. Nothing about it was conventional at the time, super conventional. But even compared to, like, most slashers, I like that it doesn't go down a path of even just like, the remake where it's just kill. Like, I really appreciate kind of the bigger scope of it and attempting to do more things. I just don't think any of the characters or dialogue was that well written to to make the stuff that wasn't the murder mystery part interesting. Like it could have been, better in that regard, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's not a lot of gore effects in this one.
It's not really needed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really needed. I mean, I think a lot of it's more effective when you don't see what happens, or you just kind of see somebody off screen get stabbed and then blood squirts and things like that. And two, like the killer in this one is like left relatively ambiguous as to who it is. I know that like I was reading up on this movie that people, the producers and stuff, wanted them to make the I already forgot the character's name, the other boyfriend, not Peter, the other boyfriend that shows up. They wanted to make him be the one that shows up at the end as like the killer, and then Bob Clark's like, nope. And then they just left it more ambiguous with the ending, and two, like,
which I think is a strength to the film for sure.
Yeah.
And the you had like the phone calls that were coming into the co-eds with like the things that Billy was saying, and a lot of people said like, oh, Scream and all these other movies took that element, which I mean, just using a phone call in a horror movie in general is kind of a trope.
Yeah, really.
But this movie was one of the first ones to do that, because also you look at like Psycho, it didn't really have much to do with the phone, but it wasn't that type of movie. But
so what do you think about this movie, Corey? I mean, you love Black Christmas. Right?
I really think it's it's definitely a classic that kind of I think sets a standard for a lot of slasher movies, even though it doesn't have a whole lot of gore scenes in it. It's definitely not needed, and one of the strengths that that it has is that whole point of view stalk and slash thing. It's definitely like brings such a creepy element to it. And
it was just a GoPro.
Yeah. Prototype 74. And, it's just like you were talking about, like what you don't see is a lot of times more scarier. And it's, I love Bob Clark. You guys know I love Bob Clark. And,
he also did A Christmas Story, Kenny and Company.
No, that was the guy from Phantasm.
Oh yeah, Don Coscarelli.
Bob Clark.
Right.
He did Death Dream, which is really underrated. Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, A Christmas Story, and Porky's. Yeah. So he pretty much just ran the gamut of like different things. Like you see Black Christmas and you would think, oh, this dude's gonna make a ton of horror movies. No, and he just turns around and makes Porky's and A Christmas Story, and it's like the greatest directing career ever.
One thing's for sure, he definitely likes to have a sense of humor and all that stuff.
Absolutely. You can definitely tell, like, because there's some scenes in Black Christmas that are, kind of funny, like
there's a lot that tries to be funny.
The older lady like sneaking alcohol and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. But like a lot of the Margot Kidder, like a lot of her is just
so drunk. So drunk. Yeah, definitely a fan of the original.
Well, and two, like this is a movie that when it came out got mixed reviews from critics, just because it was something that really hadn't been done very often. The slashers weren't really a thing at the time, so it got kind of mixed reviews at the time, and it was kind of more of like a minor hit or a cult hit. That its reputation grew over the years, and now is viewed much more favorably by critics than it was at the time of its release. And a lot of it's just because you have like prudish people who are like, this should never be on celluloid on film.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be murdering someone on the birthday of Jesus. You should be celebrating.
And two, I think people, there's a lot of defenders of this film that say, well, this was like one of the first slashers, or you know what I mean, one that set it off.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people.
One that stood out, definitely.
Anytime this is brought up on film, you always see people commenting and kind of sticking up for this movie, and rightfully so in some regards. But I don't think I don't think showing it to modern audiences that it's going to do much for them.
Yeah, if somebody's not like a big horror fan or like a cinema fan, if somebody is 18 years old and their favorite movie is Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, which I don't think anyone's favorite movie is that, but if you show them this, they'll be like, it takes so long. There was no boobies and no one even got...
there's got to be boobs, there's got to be gore, or there's got to be those stupid like jump scenes that are so predictable. Because definitely people that would watch this movie now that have never seen it before, they're not going to be able to appreciate how good of a movie it actually is.
And too, it's hard to pinpoint like exactly everything that took an influence from this movie. Like everyone claims, like you can see some of the influence in Halloween with the point of view stuff and
Psycho too.
Yeah, so there's all these movies that
De Palma even did some of that point of view stuff and then made fun of it and Blowout.
Yeah, so there's, definitely one of the formative movies in the genre. A lot of stuff took influence from it, and it was, something that I think every horror fan should at least check out and watch once if they haven't. Because
From
it's
a
definitely
from a historical perspective, I think.
yeah, it's a milestone. Because like when you look back at those original movies, like slightly comparing this to like say like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I think holds up a little bit better now, just because it was like a little bit grimier and kind of came across almost more like documentary style.
Make sure you take a shower after watching it.
But the first part of Texas Chainsaw is like kind of goofy.
Yeah.
But once you get into like, halfway in the film, then it holds up really well,
Yeah.
I think. But that first part is so clunky and just like dumb, It's like it's almost the same. It's not quite the level of stupid humor that's in Black Christmas, but you know what I mean? It's in that same realm almost.
too,
It
like,
just doesn't hold up.
So this one does have some very effective scenes, like the scene of Billy, like his eyeballs staring through, like when they're in one of the bedrooms towards the end. Like that was a very effective scene. I think was scarier than actually showing somebody full bodied. Like there was no mask in this, so it was just somebody that was doing this.
Well, they passed that scene over on into the remake too, which I'm really glad they did because that was definitely one that I think stood out for a lot of people.
Yeah, and talking about the remake too, like, you bring up they don't really need the gore. Honestly, I don't know if I'm getting older, if I've just seen so many like slasher films.
Probably.
Like, a lot of the
Second.
gore in the remake, I was just like, it was just so like, all right, this person's dead. Like none of it was really that inventive. Like it looked pretty good. Some of it looked good. Some of it didn't look good. Like the eyes that were stabbed out,
Right.
that all looked horrible. I mean, it looked like somebody had their eye closed and they painted black on there and built it up. Like
Yes.
the gore just didn't do anything for me really in the remake at all.
Well, too, like, so I guess we can kind of go ahead and start moving into talking about the 2006 remake. So one thing that was very apparent to me, so this was directed by Glenn Morgan, who was...
And produced by Bob Clark also.
Yeah, and Glenn Morgan and his writing partner Jim Wong were longtime writers on the X-Files, wrote a lot of their big episodes. They wrote the episode Home, which was about inbred cannibals, and I saw a lot of that in this movie. So in the remake, you get the backstory to Billy, and now apparently his daughter, Agnes, and who, like, for a while, I was like, she looks like Fred Armisen, wearing, like, a bunch of makeup.
Yeah,
and
like
then,
the feminist bookstore owner
Yeah.
from Portlandia.
And then when you finally saw her lit well, it's like, oh, okay. But I was like, is this Fred Armisen killed somebody? But this movie,
I think she just kind of looks dumb. Like it's not scary.
It's like it's almost like they tried to put makeup on her, and then it's just like they gave up halfway through.
like,
it's like, what the fuck kind
all
of
right,
makeup
we just
does
gotta
she have
shoot
on?
this. This is what we have.
We're running out of time.
Yeah.
and this movie had a very, very 2006 level cast. It had some people who were big at the time. So you had
Which I enjoy going back
yeah.
and watching this because I liked
Mary Elizabeth Winstead,
Yeah.
who was in Final Destination 3, which Glenn Morgan was a writer on.
She's also in Death Proof. She was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World as
Yeah.
Ramona Flowers. I like her a whole lot.
Yeah, she was in Live Free or Die Hard.
Oh yeah.
John McClane's a superhero now.
Yeah.
Then it also had Lacey Chabert. And then
Girls.
yeah, which is
She
an underrated
plays such
flick.
a good spoiled rich bitch.
She does. I mean, I thought she did an awesome job. Even like when her kill scene when she dies, like she did awesome in that.
Yeah.
I think she's actually really good.
Dirt in her teeth.
Yeah,
and all
I'd like
kinds
to
of
see
shit.
her in
Yeah.
more things. I mean,
Michelle Trachtenberg, who is very much an actress of the
Nickelodeon
mid
era.
2000s,
Harriet the Spy.
90s. Yeah, and then the main character Kelly was played by Katie Cassidy, who
Is she an Arrow or something? I saw. people-
Yeah. So I think she was an effective final girl. It's a little bit different approach than the original took. Because one thing that I'm having to look this up. It was tough as hell to keep these character names straight because you got to see them for maybe 3 seconds before they're all together, and there's very little character development aside from that's the Margot Kidder type character who's drunk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it took
yeah.
me a minute to connect that.
That
And
was
it's
easy to
like,
point out
oh,
for me,
here's
though.
a
There's
chick
the
with-
drunk one. I was
Yeah.
waiting for it the whole time.
Here's a chick with glasses, but it's a different character than the girl that had glasses in the original, and the house mother is a little bit different role. And then it had Oliver
And
Hudson,
played by Andrea Martin, who was also in the original.
Yes. So that's like a connection between them.
And also too, we didn't go over what happens in the original, the ending of the original.
Oh yeah. So the ending of the original, the main character Jess is being tormented by the killer after all of her sorority sisters have been killed, and she's in the basement hiding, and her boyfriend Peter, the one that she'd had a fight with and
About the
told her
abortion.
that didn't want her to get an abortion because he's pro-life and he supports those super PACs. She wanted the abortion, and he said, "Yeah, you can drop out of school, get married, and go home and be my wife." And then they had a fight, and then he shows up at the end in a very creepy way, and like because he
he's just total creep.
he's like,
I mean,
where you at? Where you at? And then he busts the window out in the basement, and then like just keeps coming towards her.
he knows a killer's running around. Like,
So then he goes towards her, and
Let me
then
act like
it
one.
cuts to the next like later, and it shows her like it looks like they're both dead, but she just had battered him with the poker she took from the fireplace. So she had apparently killed Peter, and they assume it's open shut case. Peter was the killer; he was the one doing it all, and when the character Jess is asleep in the bed, the cops just have one cop post outside. Everybody leaves while they're waiting for her parents to get there and an ambulance and stuff. And then in the attic, you hear the killer, Billy, with the dead body. So they did not search the attic at the end, and there's where
Worst
all the dead
cops
bodies
ever
are.
in this
Yeah.
movie. Like with the part where they're actually calling the police. Like there's some creepy guy calling, and they're like, well, I don't got time to fuck with this right now. Like, there's too much shit going on. Oh, somebody's trying to kill you. Well,
As
good luck.
opposed to now, people getting in trouble for liking too many Instagram pictures of someone. Or something. So that was the ending. It was left ambiguous as to who the killer was.
which I like. I really like the ending of that film.
I liked it because
I like leaving
know,
stuff on a mystery. I think it's always better that way.
you hear him like kind of refer to himself as Billy, so that's kind of where he says the name of the character is, and it could be anybody really, so you don't really know who it is. I think that's a nice touch, and it just ends the movie out with him kind of getting away with it. This version gives the complete.
Billy, I think.
Yeah, I was about to say.
There's something in your attic.
Billy.
I think it's Billy.
This gives the complete and full backstory of the character Billy and his sister and his family, and flashbacks, and
Got jaundice.
yeah,
You may. Yeah, right?
he's got yellow skin because of a liver condition. And like one thing that I thought and it's like incest. His mom bangs him to get pregnant after they killed his biological father, and it's odd. But like one thing too that I thought halfway through it, and I was like, okay, it's starting to get a little bit cheesy. They're using Christmas themed things to kill everyone in this movie.
Yeah.
I was like, I get why they're doing it, and two, this is just when you look
They go
at
full bore with Christmas on this one, and I like the
Yeah.
use of music a lot. Like, I think they did a good job with that, because that's what people wanted out of a Black Christmas film in 2006.
Yeah.
They wanted to go just full.
Exactly. I mean,
you
it's
know.
it's obviously cheesy,
Yeah.
but it's definitely like fun. Like
Yeah.
they make it fun. It's got a real good pace to it too, as well.
And like this one, I said, the original one had very little gore, very little on-screen death occurring. And this one has somebody's head getting chopped half off with an ice skate, throat getting slit, like eyeballs
Stabbed
poked
with a
out.
pin.
Eating eyeballs.
Yeah. Oh, it was mentioned earlier. So the the boyfriend, this one, Oliver Hudson, he was on Scream Queens.
Yeah, he's been in a. He's also on.
He's a brother of Kate Hudson, but not child of Kurt Russell.
He's also on that show with David Puddy from Seinfeld and Rules of Engagement.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where I noticed him from.
Okay, that's
With
one of
David,
those
David Spade.
one of those shows that shows up like on reruns on TBS.
Yeah.
That's on the break room of like a doctor's office when you're sick
Yeah.
or something. So, like I said, it's like the main cast in this. Like I think like the final girl does a good job, but I think that like all the characters, like I really don't know who any of them are aside from they're all incredibly attractive, almost to like how do you get all these girls like. I don't know. It was very much like a mid 2000s
They killed
style
off the ugly one
slasher.
pretty quickly, though.
I mean, it's 2006.
Like
Gotta
one
do
of
that.
these things is not like the other. You're out. She's a loser, as Donald Trump would say. It's
The
just
casting
Getting
process.
political
We know
on
who's
this
going first.
podcast.
well, I'm not taking a stance. I'm just referencing things. But like the characters, like I think the only affinity you would have for any of these characters is having liked the actresses playing them and
Yeah.
other things they were in.
And that was their strength. Like, they were very smart to cast the way they did, because that's the only thing I pull out of this movie. I like the
Yeah.
cast members. Other than that, there was some kills, but like I said, I got bored of a lot of that. Like halfway through this movie, I got actually really bored, because sometimes when movies go in flashback mode that slows it down, which I really didn't think it slowed it down in this movie. Like you don't always need a backstory to the killer, but
It's almost confusing. They do it.
Yeah.
But
They cut back
But
and
I'm like,
forth
okay, well, at
and-
least some interesting things are happening in the flashback. Like, you know, there's something going on instead of just this normal, you know, sorority girls in a house. But really, like after halfway through the film, I kind of got pretty bored of this one.
I actually didn't. I mean, it's obviously very cheesy in a few parts of it, more than a few parts. And but I mean, I think it's paced very well. The fact that they didn't spend so much time on each character, like there's so many characters, I feel like, of the girls that they had to introduce, and they just kind of, you know, threw them out there for a second and then just kept it going. Kind of sucks that they did it that way, but at the pace they were going, I think it kind of worked out well because
I almost feel like the original, to some degree, put you in the middle of all these characters, and you just started figuring them out. As you know, it's almost like
the original, you kind of got to understand it a little more. Like their dialogue was a lot more stretched out.
Did a better job of that in the original, but it was almost the same approach of like, hey, you're just in this house with these girls now.
Yeah,
and they're
and
walking in and whatever. Yeah,
and the remake, it's more like moving along.
If I remember correctly, like the running time of these movies wasn't too different. I actually think the original was shorter. But the original kind of spaced things out more because you kind of had like the kill at the beginning, and you had like, you know, more time to know the characters, and then you had like the subplot of like the 13-year-old girl who went missing that was found dead, and then, you know, it comes back and all the kills kind of happen kind of close together towards the end, all in like that one kind of sequence. As opposed to this one, the kills are kind of peppered throughout. It really wasn't spaced out. It just, you know, there's the initial kill at the beginning, and then it just kind of keeps going from there, and there's really not more than 5 or 10 minutes between any of, you know, the scenes where somebody's getting their eyes ripped out. And I think too, this kind of follows the template of a lot of remakes of you know, classic movies go much more mean-spirited than the original, because in the original one, like, people got killed, and, you know, it wasn't super sympathetic with its characters and like let all of them live. It, you know, kill people off. But this one was just like, not only are they getting killed, like their heads getting sliced off, and then their eyes are getting poked out. And
well, I mean, again, that just goes with how, you know, nowadays we're more used to seeing gore and extreme violence and stuff like that. And like we were saying before, I don't think if they did like an actual shot-for-shot remake of the original, that it would have been. I mean, not that this one, not that this remake was extremely successful and really popular, but I don't think that.
Well, I like that they took a different approach to it. At least, like, I appreciate that, even though, like, you know, I don't like love this film or anything. Like, I appreciate that I'm not watching the same film over and over, you know, the same movie twice. And also, 2006, there wasn't a ton of slashers that were coming out.
Yeah, 2006. So you had in '96, you had Scream come out and kind of revitalize like the slasher genre for teens and young adults, and made them like super relevant at the box office again. So you had like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Urban Legend,
and
it was just completely silent.
And then the remake started coming out around 2003. Like, there was remakes before that, but when Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, and that was pretty successful, it's like the remakes really blew up.
Yeah, so...
And we've been doing that ever since.
So, like, I mean, I do enjoy seeing, you know, new slashers coming out, you know, that actually have, you know, some artistic intent behind it, or some, you know, people behind it, like you said, like Bob Clark producing and Glenn Morgan directing, who actually, his prior directing experience was the movie Willard with Crispin Glover. So we had like long history in the X-Files, and wrote a lot of other stuff. Like I said, wrote like Final Destination 1 and 3 with Jim Long. So, you know, somebody that had some experience, but I think that was just, to me, the movie was, you know, as far as just a straight slasher goes, it had all the elements there, and you know, as just a slasher, it's fine. It just didn't leave me with any impact as to anything that would make me want to go back to it. As opposed to, I will rewatch the original, you know, from time to time, just because, you know, it's always just kind of good to go back and watch where, you know, a lot of the techniques that are so prevalent now came from, or where it kind of popularized it. As opposed, like I said, this one, you know, it had a lot of elements. I thought that the end kind of got goofy when they're at the hospital. So after
I was ready for it to end. I was like, okay, come on.
That was one like element of the movie where I was just like, geez, how much longer is this going to go on?
Exactly.
Because that almost took it into like parody territory, like where the killers, so I don't know if you laid it out. So Billy has sex with his mom, has a daughter. His mom has a daughter named Agnes, who she treats as her real family. When she's a kid, she's like got a round head though. But then So then, like, Billy kills the mom and her boyfriend because they killed his dad, and then he takes Agnes and plucks out her eye, and then he goes to a mentally insane, or he goes to the institution for mentally insane.
You gotta forget he makes cookies out of mom's back.
Oh yeah, he takes a cookie cutter.
Which
and
also
makes
too,
cookies.
I was just like, I was kind of bored of that. I was like, they're just trying to do like everything again cheesy. Like
I enjoyed it actually. I love cheese.
So you have those elements, and then the killer is Billy and his daughter Agnes, who looks like Fred Armisen in makeup, and then they're the ones doing all the killing. So at the at the end of the movie, they're stuck in the wall, and there's a fire, so you think they're dead, and then it goes to the morgue, and guess what? They're not dead, but somehow
unzips the body bag like, come on, Agnes, get out of there.
So then they escape and go on. They magically know exactly where to go in the hospital to find the survivors and start attacking them. And at that point, I was like,
why are they targeting them though? Like, is there any reason why
they were
after her?
They were living in the house.
Yeah, but now they're in the hospital. Like, I understand because they were in the house. I totally get that.
Because they punked them out.
Is that, I guess they're just wanting to get back
They're
at
like,
them.
you think you tough? Do you think you're tough?
Okay.
Yeah, so...
But yeah, they had
Big
really
time.
there was no like overarching motive. Like, say even like a Halloween in this when they're in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's just, if you just want to kill, just go kill whoever.
Yeah, so I mean, like...
You lived in my house. That's reason enough.
That was my bedroom!
That was my bedroom.
But too, like, to me, watching this, like, I hadn't watched the remake before. I'd only seen the original, so it was surprising to me that so many bigger name actresses were cut out pretty early in the movie and weren't the final character. But overall, like I said, I just as a straight slasher, I think it's okay.
It's fun. That's the way I
think it's
explain
a
it to
fine movie.
people.
If you're with friends over and around Christmas, I think it's totally cool.
It's definitely one of the movies I watch every Christmas.
It's probably a better one to put on than the original in that regard because you can pop in and see a couple kills and like halfway pay attention to it. There's a lot going on as far as that.
And the critical consensus on this when it came out was pretty bad. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it still has like a 14% or something. But within the slasher community, it's got, people enjoy it. If you look on, like I ran this on Google Play, it had like 4 out of 5 stars, which isn't bad really when you look at like, actual like people who are seeking this out now in like 2010 and beyond when Google Play lets you rent movies, all knew what they were getting into and were looking for it. So, so I think it was a fun movie. There's that word we try not to use around here, fun or interesting.
Our audio engineer, Arnie, hates it.
But
Rightfully
it's like,
so.
It's a straightforward slasher, it's worth watching, but it's not any lasting impact. None of the characters are really anything that you care about. And I thought it went on a little bit too long at the end. And I think that the original had the better approach in having the killer be a little bit more mysterious.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Corey?
Definitely. I definitely don't dislike it as much as you guys seem to. I think it's again, I love cheesy movies. I think it was fun to watch. It was cool knowing that Bob Clark was involved in the film.
I really like that he at least you can feel good about. He was involved in this.
Absolutely. Because
got his blessing.
I'm such a huge fan of Bob Clark, and just to know that he was involved with that is awesome. It sucks he was actually going to do he was going to be involved in a remake of Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, but died tragically beforehand. But back to Black Christmas. Again, that word that we don't use that much. It was fun. I can't help it. The movie is fun. A little bit over the top. One of those movies where you don't really get too involved with the characters. Like, you don't start to get any kind of sympathy for them or anything. You're just kind of like, who's going to die first?
Yeah.
Looks great. Colors are awesome. Anything with around Christmas with horror movies is fun to watch. I enjoyed it. The ending was a little bit of overkill, but overall, I like it.
Yeah, so the gore element is definitely kind of what this one hangs its hat on, I think. But at the same time, like older films, what was great about gore scenes was they were almost like magic tricks because it was all practical effects. Like, how do they do that? It was just a lot of like cutting to a shot of a head on the ground or whatever. Right. And even with CGI, you can kind of, even if they do something that looks real, sometimes you're like, oh, maybe that was just CGI, and it's less impressive due to the era we live in. So that's why it kind of fell flat for me. And also, aside from it just being set at Christmas and them using Christmas music and stuff, like I feel like either one they weren't really super focused on Christmas. Say something
Yeah.
like Krampus, where it was like, oh, Christmas is normally about family and a lot of different things. This just happened to be kind of around Christmas at a sorority house, which was fine, but
Yeah, the remake had a little bit more to do with Christmas than the original, with like Billy actually being into getting gifts and Santa and stuff.
Yeah. So I appreciate that they try to beef that element up, but yeah, I like the original more, but it's not like super watchable for a modern audience. And then the remake is fine to put on. Yeah. But it's nothing. Yeah, again, it's very forgettable, other than the actresses that they casted in the film.
Yeah. It's like the original, I like. Definitely, that's when I rewatch. I don't like as much as Halloween or some of those later films, but you definitely see what it did and appreciate what it did for the, pushing forward horror. But I enjoyed the original more than the remake. But if you have thoughts on that, let us know what you think in the comments. Always appreciate feedback, as long as it's not you suck or talking about CGI cocks or something.
I don't mind that.
But
Corey's got a couple of those comments.
I think that'll wrap up this episode of the House by the Video Store podcast. Thanks for listening.